Are you satisfied with your understanding of sustainability? If you are not, imagine a journey together, a pluralistic one, with academia, innovators, startups, NGOs, all looking for solutions to the greatest challenge of our time. My name is Samuele Tini, and this is the Sustainability Journey. And welcome to another episode. And today we are going to discuss an important sector, water, and especially in the context of the urbanization. And we are doing it with an expert on water research, who has been a leading university, and today it has two important charges. He's the water expert in the natural science sector of the UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, and he's also the senior research advisor for the UNESCO Chair for Climate Change, Resilience and Sustainability. So I'm very welcome to introduce Dr. Christian Berretta. Thank you so much, Christian, for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Samuele. I'm very excited to be part of your podcast, which is very successful, and thank you for inviting me.
And Christian, you are a leading expert. You are designing projects and working on solving the issues of water, especially in urban planning. But before that, and before the discussion also, we want to know the usual question. Who is Christian? What is your journey?
My journey started as an academic at the University of Genoa in Italy, where my background is environmental and civil engineering, and I focus on water resources management, and hydrology. I started my work at the university looking very much into stormwater management and looking very much into the quality of stormwater. At the time, it was really an issue of discharging stormwater, which is polluted, into water bodies, and it was really a matter of the impact of these stormwater runoff from urban or industrial areas into water bodies. So a lot of my work initially was about monitoring programs and really supporting the agencies that were in charge of providing permission for discharge and protecting the water resources. I had the opportunity to join after my PhD, to join a research group at the University of Florida as a postdoctoral researcher. I moved to Florida, where I spent 4 years very much working on the solution, not only the quality of stormwater runoff, but also how can we control pollutants, which type of solution we can use. And particularly, I focus very much on nutrients because in Florida there are very, very limited restrictive criteria for discharging lakes and rivers on nutrients. The Florida Department for Environmental Protection was really sponsoring the university to study the issue and understand it better. That was work very closely to the government and to the Environmental Protection Agency, where we tested different systems and came up with a solution that have been lately applied, and also doing monitoring program at the state level in Florida. I moved from there after to UK, where I spent 10 years of my research career at the University of Sheffield and finally the University of Leeds, where I got my lectureship. And my work there focused very much on nature-based solutions or green infrastructure to manage stormwater from the quantity point of view, so to control flooding, but also from the quality point of view, setting up different experiments. And I've always worked in experimental type of work, collecting data, and I found it very, very valuable, very exciting. Since then, from family reason, I moved to the south of the world. I found myself the last 2 years in Nairobi, Kenya. I joined Strathmore University as a research advisor for the UNESCO Chair on Climate Change, Resilience and Sustainability. Was awarded to a Professor Da Silva, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation of the university, and who asked me to join the team to advise the research strategy for this 4 years program. And since then, I joined UNESCO and the natural science sector, particularly the water science team. And the UNESCO in Nairobi is the regional office for Eastern Africa.
What a wonderful career and really big achievements. Now spanning from 3 continents, Europe, the Americas, and now Africa. And especially Africa now, we know that by 2030, a population on our continent will raise of more than 200 million people. And it will have also a rapid urbanization. So from your research that really pointed out the work, and especially a factor overlooked, stormwater and the water management, why is sustainable design so important in the context of water management? And have you seen the evolution in urban water management over the years?
Yes, Samuel, very, very much. I mean, we know that rapid urbanization is happening. It is happening also rapid population growth. And the climate change is very well known. We know that urban areas host already 50% of the global population and is projected to reach 60% by 2050. And the water demand will increase by 55% globally. These challenges that we are facing are impacting very much our city, and what we are observing is that we have increasing water scarcity due to overexploitation of the resources. And we are observing urban flooding when due also to climate change, but also due to not properly planned urbanization. And when the rainfall runoff is exceed the capacity of the drainage systems, and then we have the degradation of water resources. So it is estimated that 4 billion people will be living in water-stressed areas. And then the number of people at risk from floods will rise to 1.6 billion by 2050. But of course, are driver from the sector. As you mentioned, urbanization it has consequences that possibly we overlook. And in this sense, it is clear is that with urbanization, we are changing the natural water cycle. So what was supposed to happen normally through the presence of vegetation, that is, it rains and then we have water infiltrate in the soil and recharge our groundwater. And then there is a massive amount of water that goes up to the atmosphere through evapotranspiration. And only minimal water is overland flow, what we call runoff. In a situation post-development, this natural cycle has been disrupted and changed. And what we observe that infiltration becomes very little, because now instead of rural areas, we have cities with roofs and parking areas and car parks. So the groundwater is not recharged. The evapotranspiration becomes very low because there is no vegetation. And what we deal with now is a massive amount of rainfall that becomes runoff. So a massive volume of water that we need to deal with. And this is what is causing flooding, for example, in these areas. To deal with this water, the traditional approach, like let's say before the 80s, was really to convey this water as soon as possible away from the city. And this was by building pipes, underground pipes. Normally these were combined sewer system that were collecting rainfall and wastewater, and then, treating this water. And now, in time, this system became really not sustainable. And the problem is that it's too much water coming into these systems. And so what is happening is a phenomenon that is called combined sewer overflows. So when the water flow in our drainage system exceed the capacity of the treatment system, all the water that exceeds this capacity is discharged untreated to water bodies. And this is really creating a massive issue of pollution. While this has been understood in time, and it's still a major issue now, but has been understood, we went from a traditional approach to a conservative approach by building a lot of storage tanks, what they call the stormwater tanks. And actually 20 years ago, with my PhD, that's exactly was the focus of my work, to design these storage tanks, these stormwater tanks, that were capturing part of the rainfall and then releasing these. But also this approach is becoming not sustainable due to climate change, and also because it doesn't really influence the quality. It just store temporarily water. And also is use a lot of cement, is not, or concrete, sorry, and so is not a sustainable solution, is disruptive to infrastructure. So we came there to the new phase of drainage, which is the sustainable approach, which is really to manage stormwater at the source And considering surface runoff as a resource, like rainfall runoff is a resource, and not anymore like a nuisance, something that needs to be conveyed. But also the main driver here is the protection of water resources and enhance flood resilience and to promote ecosystem services. So bringing back nature and vegetation to cities, for example, basically develop all the concept of nature-based solutions, or what is called water-sensitive urban design, which is a concept that I really like. One of the definitions is really land planning and engineering design approach, which integrates the urban water cycle, which includes stormwater, groundwater, wastewater management, and water supply into the urban design to minimize environmental degradation, improve aesthetic and recreational appeal. So this is a concept that propose a solution that mimic the natural process of infiltration, evapotranspiration. And in part of the world, these are called sustainable drainage system or nature-based solutions. And really the design of these systems look into aspect of water quantity, water quality, but also at amenity and biodiversity. So to create and sustain better places for people, and to create and sustain better places for nature, while at the same time addressing the flooding, so the water quantity and the treatment solutions.
And often, I would say often overlook a problem, but we are now sometimes, especially in this part of the world, facing the Nino and the floodings that will happen, and rapid urbanization can create problems. And sometimes it can be ironic in a way, because we have water scarcity, sometimes we have massive amount of water coming, which can be used. Maybe, Christian, how we can leverage this, especially for our areas, because if you see the amount of water that in some areas is 700, 800 millimeter, but maybe concentrated in a very short period. So they wreak havoc, and then we have a desert for other months. How we can use that resource?
No, thank you so much. This is a really, really good question. In fact, what we are observing really where we are, like in the Horn of Africa, we really observe is these very dry periods. And now we experience the last 2 years an unprecedented drought. And when it rains, so we have really flooding and disasters. And some numbers, some that you can see is that, the Horn of Africa drought impacted 36 million lives and livelihood, and with 20 million facing emergency food insecurity. At the same time, flooding is something that we are observing, and it will become possibly even worse with the scenarios of climate change, where we expect to have more frequent extreme events. So how really can we leverage these? First of all, once you have for 2 years in a drought, so we need to take these into account in our strategies. So it doesn't become anymore an emergency, or is really becoming like a crisis that is a recurrent situation. It is true that stormwater and flooding is not used at the moment, and definitely we have potential to use this water by doing rainwater harvesting. This is very common, but also by doing what is called managed aquifer recharge. So using floods and stormwater to recharge the groundwater. And these are engineered systems, can be also natural-based solutions that make best use of flood water to recharge the resources. Also, something, Samuel, that is not mentioned much is that groundwater is really a resource that is not exploited as we should. And we know for sure that the Horn of Africa is rich in groundwater, but the issue is becoming access to this groundwater. There are not the right investment to tap into these resources. And something that for me is very striking for the amount of groundwater is used for example, irrigation. So in Sub-Saharan Africa, the total cultivated land is under irrigation, and only 5% of that is irrigated with groundwater. So these are resources that we definitely need to look into, And to do so, we need to go back to understanding the resources, vulnerability of the resources. I feel really there's a need to look into that. Actually, the work in UNESCO is very much focused, my work on water security. And by water security, we don't mean only the sufficient water of good quality, but also to mitigate the impacts of water-related hazards such floods and droughts, and to ensure protection against waterborne pollution. This is like a definition that was adopted by the UN Water Conference in New York in last March this year. To tap into these resources, we really need a better understanding, and I think really we could change the dynamic of countries if we tap into the resources properly. And some issues that really the groundwater policy is primarily focused on the use of groundwater after abstraction. And groundwater is often perceived as a private resource, like if it's in my land, I can use it. So the government needs really to fully assume the role as a resource custodian, view of common and public good aspect of groundwater. And at the same time, good use of stormwater and floods to recharge resources or for other use for livelihood. I believe we could approach the issue of water stress, water scarcity, and flooding.
It's really an important topic, and we can see how we can leverage this solution really to support what is the adaptation, the resilience, especially of our area. And I want to go on that part a bit deeper. So, can you share some practical solution and impact stories from your research, something that really you have seen is working on the ground and can be useful, for planners, for people that they're out there?
The fact I've been working in different contexts, and so I see solutions that are really suitable for certain contexts, and in the south of the world, like here in where we are in Kenya. It's like in my work in the US, we solution to tackle, for example, nutrients from the stormwater were tested, and we found something very valuable, created a media, like a filtration system, which was an aluminum oxide coated media, which could really control nutrients. Fantastic application, for example, in car parts, where the media could be like a permeable cement or pavement. And I can see really a great opportunity there to really play with engineered soil to trap pollutants. I worked a lot in the last years on biofiltration systems, and these are type of nature-based solutions which include vegetation and soil. And part of my work was really how to optimize the soil and the plants for the type of climate to control flooding and to control pollutants. And we use, for example, engineered soil, like we've been mixed with the soil, like carbon activated carbon or zeolite, and having very, very excellent results. Of course, this is an application in a part of the world. Other type of solution could be really looking at how to maintain, for example, the drainage systems. So certain cities, for example, I work in Accra in Ghana, they have adopted community-based maintenance of urban drainage systems. Why this is important? Because when we do have a drainage systems, then south of the world many times is used as a collection for solid waste. So there's an issue of solid waste management, and this solid waste that goes into the drainage system, which normally are open channel, really reduce the capacity and can create really major issues in flooding. So a part of the work there was really to inform the community of when this maintenance, which was really collection and cleanup of the drainage, really maintenance of drainage, could have been more efficient, could have been done, which I thought it was very useful. But also the work that we are doing now with UNESCO on water security involved very much the community, and we're using what is called community-centered approaches or people-centered approaches. And one of the approach that we propose with UNESCO is the use of CRIDA, which is climate risk-informed decision analysis methods, which represent a bottom-up approach to identify water security risks And it is sensitive to water vulnerabilities of indigenous population and is guided by a gender perspective. And I really like this method because with the knowledge that we have now, we can produce possibly scenarios of, for example, taking into account climate change and different climate adaptation solutions. But then once these scenarios and these options are there, we use a bottom-up approach involving the community in the decision process of which of these solutions could work better for the community and really work to identify the best one. And I see these methods should be applied in any project regarding climate adaptation solution. And in my case, really relatively much in how to manage water resources sustainably.
I can see the example from the, let us say, the Florida side, even from the African aspect. So we really have solutions that they can suit different environments and really support and tap on these resources, otherwise going to waste, and which with the water scarcity and the problem that we are facing should now become a resource, or now also to face the adaptation needed, not for the climate change. And to do that, I think that people maybe in the audience, especially planners and people that, especially in this side of the world, which is rapidly urbanizing, we can see construction and building every single day mushrooming in all our estates and area. So how we can integrate sustainability in design, construction, and maintenance, really, in our work?
First of all, I think we should really step back 1 minute before thinking about implementation. And in order to avoid past mistakes, we really need to look into knowledge-based creation. So we need to understand what is the issue in its complexity and possibly addressing it through a multi-sectoral and multidiscipline approach. We need to really go away from the business as usual type of approach. And that is something we observe like in different projects. Like we use, for example, drainage systems that are piped, like with pipes underground, because that has been done in the past. That is the business as usual. We know how they perform. We know how to design. But we also understood that in time, this is not working. And we understood that, it is possible to design in a more sustainable manner. We do have now the knowledge, and we have enough knowledge to start to implement nature-based solutions. In the world, there are certain countries, like for example in US, in Portland, Oregon, or in Melbourne, in Australia, they decided to start to implement these systems, and at the same time study them. But other countries have a more conservative approach and look really at, we don't know enough, we need to know more. I mean, we have been teaching these systems for the last 5 years, at least in my experience, or even more, even 10 years, at the university, really with the intention of changing the mentality and considering always a more sustainable solution rather than a traditional one. Or a combination of the two, but always having in mind that there are possible solutions that can look into different multiple benefits. But also when I say multi-sectoral discipline approach, we really need to apply these. We know for sure in a situation like that we are seeing, for example, with informal settlement, is never a problem only of drainage, it's a problem of drainage and solid waste management and sanitation. And until we tackle and address this issue, not in a silos but together, I don't think we can overcome the issue that we are facing. For example, informal settlement that are always subject to flooding and the cholera outbreak, and due also to poor sanitation. It is something that needs to be addressed as 360 degrees. And I do think we have the knowledge, and there will be the need of collaboration and the use of different expertise.
I really like also the way you holistically put together the dimensions. And one thing you touched really made me think how we can also foster, and especially with your role in the academia, the new generation of planners, the new leaders. And you are teaching in one of the leading universities, one of your role in Nairobi. So where the leaders from not only from Kenya, but all Africa, they are coming out even from the region. So how we can foster research in emerging economy, how we can input more towards fostering sustainable solutions, not just the traditional business as usual pipe, as you mentioned. And how this, your role at the UNESCO, especially the UNESCO Chair for Climate Change, Resilience, Sustainability, can contribute to this?
There are several ways to do that. But having my academic possibly hat at the moment, I think really it starts to having the capacity, the skills, and the right education. So looking at the curriculum and changing those to, for example, this is something we're discussing with Strathmore University, to changing and developing postgraduate studies with a sustainability development focus and sustainable development focus. And this, I think, is very important. I'm very glad that the University of Leeds was teaching a course that was called Sustainable Engineering Solutions. I really liked that the course that I was leading, where I involved in the spirit of the course about different instructor with different expertise. Because of course, when you talk about sustainability, there are different aspects, and we have the aspect of solid waste, of air pollution, of water, of transport, of urbanization, and how to apply all these in developing country context. So I think we need to start really from developing the right curriculum and the skills and capacity building. That is the beginning of changing the mentality. But also we need to work together with government in supporting the idea that every decision needs to be science-driven and data-driven. So in any investment or strategy related to water resources management, for example, we need to have a strong understanding of the water resources. Otherwise, we cannot implement. That is really something that it needs to be promoted, like a science-driven approach. Something that also at UNESCO we are trying to promote at the moment is a catchment type of approach. We know, for example, in Kenya, like through the evolution now, the power is at the county level, but we know also that water resources don't have boundaries. So we need to look into the water resources at the catchment level that of course include more counties and sometimes include also a transboundary type of resource in different countries. For example, in this moment, we are looking at Lake Turkana water basin, and 90% of the Lake Turkana in the northern part of Kenya, 90% of the water is coming from the Omo River in Ethiopia. So we are really dependent when we talk about resources in one to each other. And I think in that sense, there will be more need of collaboration in managing this resource, but also going to another level in sharing information and data. And we have the tendency in this part of the world to, and I've been here now for some time, to hear that, this NGO or this donor worked on this area of the country, so the data have been collected. There is no need to look into that anymore. But, I think it is important at this point to really gather all these data and previous leverage on previous existing work, but also looking at the quality of this data to see if they serve the purpose for what we want to do, for any adaptation strategy or intervention in water resources that we want to do. And at UNESCO, since for the last months of my work, we've been trying to create a database that is open access. And looking also at the quality of the data but also with the intention to support more collaboration among donors and with the government and different NGOs and consultant firms that have been working in the country to really create a collaborative environment where the information and the data are key to identify the gaps and develop any further monitoring or any further data collection, etc. In that sense, we're really promoting this. Even the work done at the University of Leeds, I did work through a PhD project on flooding risk in Nairobi, and that was using global data sets that have been corrected. And at UNESCO also, we are promoting the use of remote sensing in, for example, water quality. In the last project that we are looking at we are proposing to use this UNESCO World Water Quality Portal, which use Earth observation, so satellite observation, to look at the level of lake, of the extension, but also at very important water quality parameters. And that could really help in setting up monitoring program with a different type of investment, but also at really closing the issue of data scarcity. And another point, I think, to foster research and is looking really at funding. So more funding should go into research and the creation of a knowledge base. In this sense, more joint program and more coordination with donors. UNESCO is part of the Water and Sanitation Development Partner Group, and this is really a coordination body among the development partners in the sector. But also by working with Strathmore University, which is very focused on energy, and I would like to possibly talk about the possibility of leveraging multi-sector funding. So for example, energy and water. And that is something we are looking at in a project with Strathmore University on green hydrogen production.
You are launching already and capturing the idea, because from your description and your CV, and I really want to thank this wonderful lesson that you are giving us, because it's opening up my mind, and especially also the listeners, on how this overlooked water sector can be so crucial, especially for our life and for sustainability. And also you mentioned that you are also working in two wonderful projects that are really at the conjunction, of water, energy, and also looking at the renewable energy transition towards green energy. So we are talking about hydrogen, and we are talking about in the Just Green Africa project and the One Planet project. So can you explain a bit these two work that you are leading?
Absolutely, Samuel. Yes, these projects are with Strathmore University and with a partner on two European Union-funded projects. And the one is the project on green hydrogen. We know that Africa has a unique potential to exploit low-cost renewable energy to produce green hydrogen for domestic and external markets. And green hydrogen can become, in fact, the booster of sustainable development of the continent. This project really has the goal to promote European and African green hydrogen stakeholders' interaction in order to unlock a just green hydrogen transition for both continents. And this is a transition that could be sustainable from a social, economic, and environmental point of view. In this framework, 11 partners from Africa and Europe joined their forces, experiences, modeling tools, and network to really support green hydrogen promotion in Africa and Europe in a mutual benefits way, supporting local capacity building and understanding which could be the area of major interest where to act first to exploit Africa green hydrogen potential. Now, this is a project led by the University of Genova and is funded within the framework of the Clean Hydrogen Partnership. What possibly is less obvious is what is my role besides coordination of the part of Strathmore is the fact that to produce green hydrogen you need water. While you will need 9 liters of pure water to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, actually the water need is much more because it needs to be purified, and there are other water requirements for the whole process. So what we are trying to do in this project, also from what I'm trying to do and I'm leading in this project, is looking at the groundwater resources for green hydrogen production. In a place where water is scarce, of course, these bring a lot of questions and a lot of issues. So we are exploring really the possibility of using of groundwater and potential investment from the energy and water sector together to untap groundwater resources, also for the population and communities, of course. So this is a very exciting project. It started in February. It lasts for 2 years, and the General Assembly and for the project will be in Nairobi at Strathmore University in February 24. And this will be a very, very exciting time in which we can really bring all the stakeholders together. The other project you mentioned is the One Planet, which is the open source Nexus modeling tools for planning sustainable energy transition. And which is Open Planet, they look really a project across Africa. The project started in November. It aimed at empowering Africa policymakers, research and academia, investors and citizens with the necessary tool and know-how to increase clean energy generation and sustainable use of resources, while at the same time reducing inequalities and cultural socioeconomic gaps. This One Planet project will undertake a participatory approach in 3 African case studies, and these case studies are really river basin. One is the Songwe in Malawi, Tanzania, the Informati Usuthu area in South Africa, and the Niger in Nigeria. And the idea is really to co-design and test a toolkit built upon existing WEF Nexus model, so water, energy, food Nexus model and methodologies that will allow to simulate different scenarios and optimizing existing resources with the most appropriate policy, considering social, climate, economic, and biophysical constraint. This project is led by RINA Consulting, and brings together 11 multidisciplinary partners from 9 different countries in Europe and Africa. And we managed again to have the General Assembly here in Strathmore University that will happen in November, actually next month. So very excited about this opportunity. This project started in November 22 and is a bit longer, it's like 3 years project.
And Christian, this is something that can really show how an often overlooked resource, the groundwater, and how to put, leverage stormwater and flooding to recharge it, can help us unlock the transition towards the green energy and the world. So it's really the interconnection and how we can really tap on the multidisciplinary approach to solve the solution. This is actually about what we are doing in this project, trying to bring different experts which can bring solution and real solution to the problem that we are having. And I know it has been a very dense episode. I've learned so much, and especially in areas where I was not an expert, and now I can say I know the 101 at least to understand, and some tips about to our audience that we want to ask, what message you want to leave to our audience, that especially working in this field, water, sustainability, energy, the transition. What is your message for us?
I do think that, water resources management and water security in this moment is really a very exciting sector to work. And it has been perceived even more and more as an emerging focus due to climate change, but also flood disaster, water scarcity, the link with food security. In the next COP 28 will focus also on water. And we're coming from a year where there was an unprecedented UN water conference in New York. It's a very exciting moment to work in water and seeing what are the potential in the future for addressing really water security. I think the main message is really to understand what is the issue and really going back to data-driven strategy and knowledge. So boosting research and involving academia and government and private sector and the community in really addressing this issue. What I'm observing and what I see is that sometimes it's not a matter of not having water, it's a matter of not having access to water. And that is the work that, we all should do. But also really understanding the consequences and how always thinking a sustainable matter. I'm thinking also going to the level of elementary school and middle school. Like I'm not sure, how many people understand the implication of pollution and of pollution of groundwater, for example. There's a lot of information that needs to be passed from a very early age. And that I think up to the university and up to developing skills at the government level to better address. So, and also, I really want to connect to what is the title of your of this podcast, the Sustainability Journey, I really do think that of the importance of learning from the journey. And I work in different aspects and in many projects, in many proposals, and a lot of consortium have been developed, brainstorming and bringing, a lot of expertise. A lot of very good expertise is here in Africa, and we need to leverage from what we learned from the past and really look at a sustainable way to forward. But understand the importance of the lesson learned. And this is why I go back to the data and the need of leveraging of what has been done before. This data needs to be accessible, and a collaboration among countries and organization should be really promoted in order to manage the resources in a sustainable manner. It's the only way. It's actually the only way. We cannot repeating what has been done.
Fantastic. No, Christian, thank you. It has been an honor and a pleasure listening to you. I really like your message, because without data and going in depth, sometimes we have linear and very shallow understanding and discussions, but we really need to have a very in-depth conversation on how to manage the precious resources and how it is possible as well to create the future for our planet and for our species in the next maybe 50 to 100 years. We need solution, and we need people brought by data and working to really go away from the old way of doing, learning from the mistakes, and then deliver solutions that are really sustainable. So thank you so much, Christian, for your wonderful episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuele. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Are you satisfied after this wonderful episode? Let's continue together our sustainability journey.